Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind. It is our 114th episode. Been a busy couple weeks, but Niles, how have you been since our last recording session?
Great. I cannot complain with anything that's going on in my life. It's always a good win to say there. Yeah, I feel like we always say we're busy, but what else is new? And there's fun things on the horizon. We've got some trips planned, and we're looking forward to those. But yeah, otherwise it's just another day in the life of Niles, just working on marketing stuff and from home. Can't complain. How have you been doing?
Oh, hanging in there. Busy as well. We had some birthdays in our friend group, which was a good time. And
True.
yeah, I've got like a work summit this week, so I'll be
Oh yeah.
office the rest of the week, being very, very busy. Got a lot of little talks to go to, and my normal job to do on top of that. So,
Isn't that the best when you have like a work obligation and you still got to do all of your regular work on top of that? Like,
yeah,
it's like you
it
got two
is.
jobs for a week.
You do, and I love all of the extra stuff. I just wish the regular work, stopped for a second while I was doing it. But as usual, we are here to talk about a film, and this week we are talking about Weapons. We'll do a few minutes non-spoilers, and then we'll hop into spoilers. So the latest film from writer-director Zach Cregger, Weapons, focuses on a small town where at 2:17 a.m., 17 children from an elementary school class all get up out of their beds and disappear into the night. Weapons stars Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, Alden Ehrenreich, Benedict Wong, Carrie Christopher, Austin Abrams, and Amy Madigan. Niles, what are your initial non-spoiler thoughts on Weapons?
I mean, I was sold on this movie the minute I saw a trailer for this. And not just because Zach Cregger was on here. I'll get to that in a second. But, like, such an interesting setup from the get-go. Like, that's so creepy to begin with. And it's something that I feel like I haven't necessarily seen before. We've seen so many malignants and, hauntings. And it's like, okay. I feel like this is just a nice breath of fresh air, this kind of premise of it's just about kids leaving a school that no one knows why. And I'll just say, I loved it. I was really so happy with this movie. And I said it in our Barbarian review, which was episode 47, and I'll say it here again. I cannot believe that one of the whitest kids one of the people from that comedy group is making horror movies of this caliber now. It's insane to me. This guy who starred in absurd sketches and helped write absurd sketches like The Grapist and The Civil War on Drugs. These absurd sketches that, are just so outlandish. He starred in those. He helped write them. He did all these crazy weird sketches, and now he's creating like these great horror movies of modern day. I'm going to be blown away by it until the day I die. Zach Cregger's phenomenal,
Yeah, well, I guess it's like a similar trajectory to Jordan Peele as well, because Jordan Peele obviously did Key and Peele, and now he's making some of the sort of best contemporary horror movies. And apparently, Jordan Peele's connection to this, allegedly, he wanted his team to acquire the distribution rights for his production company, and they didn't win. They didn't win the thing, and allegedly he fired the entire team of people who was supposed to get this.
Quite the move to make there. I didn't know about that. That's fascinating. But you can see. I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah, like comedians are like Jordan Peele and Cregger. Got their start in comedy. Now they're doing really good horror. It's fascinating to see. I'm wondering if we'll see something from, I don't know, like Daniel Tosh in the next 3 years. That's just just the best horror movie I've ever seen. Who knows? Maybe. Never say never. But I think that you can.
Do people younger than us know who Daniel Tosh is?
Maybe not. Maybe that was a very dated reference.
I don't.
Or it's like, or no, it would be like Tim Robinson doing a horror movie, you know, which he could
Yeah.
do, and he could actually be pretty good at that. I could see him doing that well. Who knows? But
Yeah, because we talked about it maybe in our Barbarian episode, but maybe not. And I'll link that episode in the description for the show as well. But we talked about it at some point why horror and like there's so many funny horror movies, and I think the thing we've said and I maintain is that structurally, like from a writing perspective, the structure of a joke and a scare kind of have a similar buildup of tension and release. And so I think part of why you can so easily get jokes into a horror movie or, you know, scares into a comedy, and maybe why so many like sketch comedy people transition into horror so well, because like structurally it is a similar thing. You're just playing on a different emotion.
definitely, yeah, I absolutely remember that, and I think that you can see a lot of similarities between Weapons and Barbarian. Like they're very different in them stories in general, but I think like the cinematography and the structure of the narrative, they kind of lend to each other a little bit. Like there were some very similar shots, like the opening scene of Barbarian when she's walking into the house. Is very similar to the shot of the teacher in this, Justine, walking into her house at the start of the movie. And there's just kind of some similar shots just over the shoulder that I will notice the next time I watch it. And then also, you know, I think Barbarian, we talked about a lot in that episode, but it starts off feeling very horror-esque. The first act is like very terrifying, and then the second act, once Justin Long gets involved, it just shifts to comedy for like a good 30 minutes, and it just feels like a comedy for a bit, and then it shifts to action again. And in a way, Weapons follows a similar structure, but it's very different in its own way. But regardless, I think this movie's excellent all around. We got some stellar performances, some great characters that feel like real people. They feel complex, they feel nuanced and developed and dynamic. And we have this nice, slow, unraveling mystery that's just kind of ratcheting up slowly. And we learn a little bit more, and we learn a little bit more. And then it culminates with a great climax. And I think Cregger, he does a great job of blurring genres. We talked about that in Barbarian too. It just feels like this movie is part horror, part mystery, part absurdic comedy, especially that ending. What are some of your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so I thought, sorry, my mouse is being jittery. I thought this was great. The premise delivers a great hook to start. Like you alluded to, it feels very fresh. It's just this group of kids, they just got up and left. And you see it in the trailer, too. There's, like, the parents see the footage of them leaving, so there's, like, they're confused about, like, why did they do this? They weren't taken or anything like that. They just kind of left at the same time. What's going on? And the rest of the story really manages to deliver by showcasing, like, the emotional toll that something like this event would have on various different members of a community. And I think that's a really good, like, core to this story. It's not, like, there is the mystery element, there is the horror element, but also there's just this, like, exploration of how people deal with an unexplainable loss. And that was really compelling. I thought there's a good variety of, you know, spooky scenes, and there's a lot of funny sections as well, like you were to with Barbarian. Like, and again, these are very different movies from each other, but they do share that DNA, like you were alluding to. I will say, and I see you have a note on this as well, our viewing film was a bit compromised, and I think I'm understating that a bit. And the auditorium beneath us, and we saw this at a classic Denver theater. Love this theater; it's amazing. But sometimes it's a very old building, and you can kind of hear through the walls. And there was a showing, a special screening of The Phantom of the Opera in the adjacent auditorium, and the soundscape for our viewing of Weapons was very much flavored by Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, or like whatever kind of music they were playing. Yeah, like
Uh-huh.
it would be like a very tense scene, no music or
Quiet scene.
anything. Very quiet, tense scene where you're trying to focus on these characters, and it's just like rock from the other
Yeah.
auditorium just
Like
pounding through the
electronic
wall.
orchestra music coming up through the floor.
Yeah,
And
it's just
then
like
you
come on.
and then I didn't hear it, but you were also hearing some sounds from the movie Closer or Together, the new Dave Franco, Allison Brie movie
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So it's, it look, that is part of the peril of seeing movies in the theaters, but that is also part of the experience of seeing movies in the theaters. Sometimes, I'd rather have it be ruined by that than by a bunch of like dickheads looking at their phone and talking. At least this was interesting.
for sure. Yeah, like I don't know if I'll ever have another experience quite like that, where it's like you've got so many conflicting sounds in a horror movie. But yeah, it was just an interesting viewing experience, and
It was funny
we,
too. Like
it was great.
the entire theater was like laughing at certain points.
Yeah, yeah, like a very serious moment, but then just other shit's going on. Just completely takes you out of the moment for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mayan's great. We love the Mayan. But yeah, since it's an old movie theater, you get some interesting viewing experiences like that. And I think that's one of my only two negatives from this movie. The other being, I think that there are some moments in the movie that are incredibly dark visually, and it's kind of a little hard to see.
I
But I don't know
felt
if
that
that's how you
too.
felt.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
totally agree. There were not a ton because there are
Yes.
movies where like a lot of and this has become a trend in modern film and TV as well, where things are just shot like they're trying to achieve a level of naturalism for the nighttime scenes, I think. And as such, you can't fucking see. And this didn't go quite as far as I think both of us have seen many times, but there were a couple points where I could not see the exact going on. And sometimes that's intentional, and sometimes it works stylistically. Sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe whenever I watch it the next time, I'm just going to crank up the brightness on my TV just a little bit because I want to see some of those details. But whatever. It's not the end of the world. And Mr. Zach Cregger, if you're listening, and I know you are, Mr. Zach Cregger, in your future movies, please, this is a request for me, personal request. I want you to cast some of the Whitest Kids You Know members in small roles, like just like you did with Justin Long in this movie. He pops up for a minute as like the husband of someone, and he's just like, yeah, you can look at our footage, whatever. Give that role to Timmy or Darren or Sam next time. I just want to see them pop up for a second and be like, hey, I know that guy. That's cool. But my personal request for you.
And last thing I'll say in non-spoilers too is like again, this film is very different from Barbarian, but I think this is something I've enjoyed about both this film and that one is that like they twist in very unexpected ways and they have pretty substantial tonal times, but both films manage not to lose their identity at any point in the midst of that. Like Krieger does a great job of like melding these comedic and horror elements together in a way that feels like appropriately jarring and yet still cohesive. Like it just feels it works right. And I'd really recommend this film to a lot of people, but like especially horror fans. And if you liked Barbarian and liked stylistically what that movie was doing, I think you'll enjoy this as well. Do you have any
Yeah.
other non-spoiler thoughts?
Oh, fully agreed. I want to talk a little bit more about the movie. So let's jump into spoilers. Why not?
All right, let's do it. So to start, I loved the structure. Played a bit with the Rashomon effect, which is the storytelling structure where like you have multiple different character perspectives that sometimes contradict each other and often have unreliable narrators. And I don't think anyone's perspective in this movie was necessarily unreliable. They were definitely incomplete. and I enjoyed how each perspective sort of revealed more and more about the true nature of what was going on.
Yeah, that was such a unique element to this movie too, and it did a good job of dividing up the movie into like chapters in a way too, because I think there was like 6 of them. It was like Justine, the teacher, Archer, who's like a father, Paul the cop,
Yeah.
James,
James,
the drifter, druggie,
junkie character.
yeah, the junkie, and the principal, whose name I'm blanking on right now, and then Alex. So we got to see all these different perspectives and how it all kind of plays together, and it builds off of each other too, because all these characters are pretty interconnected. And I think just seeing those different perspectives of these core characters, it kept adding layers to each one. Like, for instance, when at first you get Justine's perspective, and there's a part where she goes to a bar, and she's sitting there drinking by herself, and Paul comes in to hang out with her and talk with her, and he tells her that, you know, he's taking a break from his girlfriend or whatever it is, and they hook up later that night. And then it's later revealed during Paul's perspective that it's like, no, he was lying to Justine there. Like, he's still in this relationship, but he's unhappy in it. But then you see, like, it's kind of a complicated relationship because it's the daughter of the police chief. And it's like,
who's his boss?
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Well, and then also you get it revealed that he's an alcoholic as well, and he was supposed to go to an AA meeting and instead goes and meets her at the bar. And so it like you were saying, it kind of builds and adds layers, because when he first comes to the bar, it's like, oh, you think he doesn't want to drink with her because he thinks she has a bit of a problem. But no, it's like, he's an alcoholic. That's why he doesn't want to take a drink. And then he does, and then hooks up with her.
Yeah. It just snowballs for him, and the next day he's wicked hungover. But like, it changes how you view that character. Like Paul, like it kind of changes your perception of him and colors him in a different light. And that happens to, I think, a lot of characters, like even James, you know, it's like, at first you just think he's just kind of like this guy who's down on his luck and just looking for places to rob. And he is. He absolutely is. But like, he's got more layers than that. Like, he's just trying to get by and trying to find ways to make money. And, you know, he's an addict. So that just kind of is what happens.
And he's like trying to, because he has a job interview, or he got a job and he needs clean clothes or something, but he needs money to like look presentable. So he's just like, well, I got to steal some shit and pawn it so that I can afford so I can afford a shirt.
Yeah. If he has a job interview, which to me felt like a white lie, but
it could be. Yeah, it could be either way, you know?
Yeah. But like, the structure of the story, I think it also provides the audience with opportunities for tonal changes in how you're engaging with the material here. Similar to Barbarian, you know, we get that dramatic shift once Justin Long gets involved in that movie, and it's like, okay, he doesn't see this house as like a creepy place. He's like, oh no, how much money can I make out of this place? Like he's like thinking about it as a business venture, and like. So we have like something similar here where like shit starts to get really intense and dark with Paul's vignette. Like his perspective, it's like, oh God, things are getting worse for him. He might have like AIDS and stuff. And this other, because he got the accidental needle stick, and then he walks past the police chief, and the police chief obviously knows that he cheated on his daughter. And it's like, oh God, things are getting really bad. And he starts to chase down James, but then it shifts to James' perspective. And then we see it kind of it's more comical, because he's like searching for any opportunity to make money. Like he's testing car doors to like see if any of them are open, like while he's on the phone, just like so he can buy more drugs and stuff. And I think that you need those kinds of tonal shifts sometimes in horror, especially, so that way you get some brevity, and you're not always just feeling so down in the muck. You can kind of be lifted up a little bit. Yeah,
true.
Yeah. I also wanted to briefly talk about the witch Gladys, because I just loved her character. She's such a weirdo, and she just felt like this hermit crab to me, like moving from one place to the next, sucking the life out and the energy out of the home's inhabitants or whoever's there, just like super weird, super bizarre, and all the Wiccan witchy stuff was really cool too. Like, you don't know what the hell she's doing at all half the time. You just kind of
Uh-huh.
understand this very basic spell that she's doing, and but the details are
Mm-hmm.
really captivating and creepy too. I don't know if you clocked it, Dylan, but the she's got this makeup, this crazy makeup on
Yeah.
her face that she dolls herself up when she goes out in public. But then the little kids in some of those dream sequences with the jump scares, they've got similar makeup on their faces, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a cool little detail to show that it's like, oh, it's her, it's always been her, this witch there. Um,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things too that I like about all the Wiccan witchy stuff too is that it explains
Mm-hmm.
just enough for us. Like, it's not clearly laying everything out and being like, this is how she did XYZ, this is her end goal, this is
Mm-hmm.
which lore, whatever. Like, it just gets enough of the point across to kind of do an appropriate balance of mystery
Mm-hmm.
with explanation. And I think that's a tough balance to hit, and sometimes in horror movies, because I think sometimes they explain too much and it kind of breaks a little bit of the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to have a little bit of mystery in there, and I think this did a good job of that.
Yeah, I agree. And because it's interesting because one of the main criticisms I've seen of this movie is that at the end it just kind of lays out everything that's been happening and explains it to you. And in terms of the direct plot, sure, it does do that. You kind of know
Mm-hmm.
all of the details of what's going on. But I think where it preserves that air of mystery is with Gladys specifically because, is she actually Aunt Gladys or is she a hermit crab or a
Mm-hmm.
parasite who is just moving from one place to another and manipulates the narrative so that she can sort of sneak in like this? How did she learn this power? Where does she come from? How does it work? The movie doesn't really have an interest in explaining any of that. And I think that element of mystery being preserved sort of lets the movie remain sort of otherworldly in a way where if they
Mm-hmm.
do a Gladys prequel, which apparently is being tossed around, we'll lose that. And I don't think they should do that. I think
Yeah.
part of what's effective about this character is she just kind of shows up and does her thing, and you don't really get an insight into what her motivation is, other than she wants to continue living and needs to, I guess, suck out other people's life force in order to do it. I want
Yeah.
to transition to some thematic stuff too, specifically the apparently accidental theme of dealing with the aftermath of a school shooting. So,
Yeah.
and I guess trigger warning for this next part is warranted. But Krieger said that this was not really what he was going for, but was rather dealing with the grief of losing a friend. But I feel like the theme of reckoning with a school shooting shines through nonetheless. And if you want to
Mm-hmm.
give context on, I'm guessing this is the friend he's referring to, but I'll defer to
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I don't know who else it could have been, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for those who don't know, Cregger, like talked about at the start, he was part of the Whitest Kids You Know sketch comedy group, um, and Trevor Moore, who's one of the original five members, passed away on August 7th, 2021. And apparently,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they were really close friends. I feel like you got to be if you're in a comedy troupe for 5 seasons together. You're probably pretty close. So I could
Yeah.
see that being the source of his grief, but
Mm-hmm.
who knows?
Yeah. The film was also released on the anniversary of Moore's death, so it does kind of tie in with it being in connection with him specifically. But I don't know if that's the case. But
Yeah.
Krieger has said that he wasn't really specifically talking about school shootings here and gun violence, but he was thinking more of this loss of a friend and dealing with it. But like the people who disappeared, being school children specifically, combined with the massive floating gun that Josh Brolin sees in the dream sequence, really played into the theme of school shooting for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, what do
Yeah,
you think about that?
that is strange to me that that was unintentional for him, because it feels on the nose to me that this theme of school shootings, it feels on the nose to me. That's literally like, I think the first thing you and I said to each other when we came out of the movie, we were like, that was about school shootings, right? And you know, this, because the story is literally like you just said, it's about a classroom of kids vanishing from a small town, and you know, that's exactly what a school shooting is. All of a sudden, you lose all these members of a town, and then the town has to like grapple with that grief, like learn how to deal with that. We've seen that time and time and again in America, but I can see how the story could be more focused on this general theme of grief, and Zach Cregger trying to process that grief of losing a friend, this loved one, and because everyone in this movie, a lot of these parents and just about everybody in the movie, they're just grappling with this loss of loved ones and just trying to find their way through life.
Yeah, and it sort of ties in with the like specifically the floating gun, and I want to talk about the intentionality of imagery or lack thereof, because I think this is a really interesting element here, because Zach Cregger said, and this is a quote, it's a very important moment for me in this movie, and to be frank with you, I think what I love about it so much is that I don't understand it. I have a few different ideas of what it might be there for, but I don't have the right answer. I like that everyone is probably going to have their own kind of interaction with their relationship with that scene, whether they don't give a shit about it and it's boring, or whether they think it's some sort of political statement, or whether they think it's just cool. I don't really care. It's not up to me. I just like that it's there. And tying back to the school shooting element, though, MSN, I was reading an article, and they cited at least one person on Reddit, user named Megaverse, made the connection to a 2022 U.S. bill, H.R. 1808, that would have banned assault rifles. It passed the House of Representatives, but it did not pass the Senate, and it passed the House with 217 votes. 2:17 a.m. 2:17 is on the gun. So that like an obvious interpretation to me, but I think I wanted to talk about the idea of incorporating symbolic imagery into art without fully understanding that imagery or symbolism yourself as the creator, because I think it's like that act is fascinating as you're sort of letting something from your subconscious speak for itself in your art. I respect the willingness to do that, combined with Krieger's sort of laissez-faire attitude about it in terms of audience reaction. And I think that if you're going to do something like that, you have to be comfortable with the audience coming away with their own interpretations, regardless of how you feel about it yourself. Because otherwise, like, there is, I think there are two separate ways to engage. I mean, many, but two distinct ways of engaging with art and symbolism here is like, one is you intentionally inject symbolism to get a point across or like a theme across. But the way he seems to be doing it here is just this imagery spoke to him in some way, and he was interested in letting it work for itself and see how people dealt with it. And obviously he's dealing with the grief over the loss of his friend, and this imagery about a gun and a seeming connection to gun violence sort of subconsciously came into the film from that grief, and then the audience in large part seems to be connecting it to gun violence. So I just think that relationship between subconscious imagery and audience reaction is just really engaging to me.
100% agree with that, and I think that's such a fascinating interpretation too. The 217 votes and the 217 time. That's wow. Someone did their homework there, and you're totally right though that like creators will subconsciously inject themes and symbols into their work without even knowing it. Like, and I think that's honestly a sign of a really talented creative individual. Like, if you are able to create this great piece of fiction and force readers to individually interpret the symbols and the stories and the thematic elements in there and try to pull out their own meaning, like, and you're not hitting them over the head with it a million times, that this is the theme. It's like kind of more subtle. It's like that's really rich and that's really powerful because then people can find whatever meaning they want from it. And, I'll just because of my literature background, I just want to throw it back to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as like an example. So that book came out in 1818. It's a classic of Gothic literature, and it's probably one of the best novels ever written. That's my opinion. I think it's really fantastic.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's excellent.
Yeah, it's an excellent story, and I'm interested to see
Guillermo del Toro's adaptation.
Yes, Guillermo del Toro's adaptation. Thank you. I was looking.
Stay tuned for later this year.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that one for sure. But like Shelley, when she wrote that story, she likely intended some symbolic meanings in the text. Like, and a lot of that was probably about this warnings about unchecked ambition and science, like reining in like what is science or like what should be considered a scientific achievement or like what is. Where should you stop your ambition? But readers over time, because that book came out in 1818, so that's over 200 years ago. At this point, readers have extrapolated much more profound symbolism in the decades since. Some people might see it as a metaphor for industrial revolution. Some people might see the story of Frankenstein as more these symbols of colonialism or oppression. Some people might even interpret queer identity symbolism in those stories too. So it's just like people can find ways to like if the source material is rich enough and profound enough, people can find those symbols in there whether the creator intended for them to be there or not. And yeah, I think it is because sometimes symbolism is more subconscious than conscious, like you were talking about. Like an author may add, when they're writing a scene or a screenplay writer or whatever, they might add something about like, oh, the tattered red drapes in the corner without a second thought. They don't even think about it. They're just like, they just need something to put in the scene. But on a subconscious level, they may have unintentionally turned that item into a symbol. And I found this other quote somewhere online. I can't remember exactly where, but it probably was from Reddit. But it's not about what people put into art. It's about what people get out of it.
Right. Yeah, and on that example too, like I think you're alluding to the meme of like what your English teacher meant by the blue curtains is like all this.
Yeah.
What the author meant, the curtains were fucking
exactly.
blue.
Exactly.
But I think that is a thing that's often used to deride reading, quote unquote, too much into the scene. But let's say the author didn't intend the deeper meaning, like you're alluding to. They picked the color blue. Still, that was a choice that was made, and if it contributes to the emotions of the scene or it gives you a new insight into a character, that is drawing from the author's subconscious, and they've done that with some intentionality, whether they recognized it or not. But back to what you were saying too about like whatever Mary Shelley was writing about in 1818 when she included things in Frankenstein, and as readers interpret new things from it over time, it's just something that will happen naturally because something as seminal as Frankenstein is going to exist forever in the canon of literature. But as we get farther and farther away from 1818, like the readership is completely divorced from the context that Shelley wrote that book in. Like, we have different experiences than she did, and lose touch with like maybe the societal context of the time that she was dealing. A much different example that I was actually talking about on Twitter this week. It's a comic book. It's a very revered comic book. DC's Kingdom Come is it's a great book. It's not a good introduction to superhero comics, which it's one of the first superhero comics I read, and that was a mistake. But it's like a part of the premise of the book is there's like a new generation of heroes who are much edgier and kind of like cutting corners a bit and not worried about collateral damage. And the Justice League, the original heroes like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, have to step back in and kind of put everything back in line and make sure, order is sort of restored. And the context of when that story was written in the 90s, it was about the comic industry and sort of the drive towards more edgy, heroes with like cool costumes and big guys and like Cable and other
Yeah.
Deadpool, other characters like that. And the story was about, or this theme of the old guard kind of coming back and taking the reins back is sort of about like, hey, we've kind of gotten away from what makes these types of characters special. Let's bring it back a little bit. But when I was reading that book, I didn't know that, and so it felt very paternalistic, like the baby taking back control from the kids who think they know what they're doing, and it felt
Yeah.
very conservative in that way, like politically conservative in a way that I'm like, I don't know if I love this. But then when I read the context of the industry at the time, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. This takes on a whole new light. So, yeah, total tangent, but I just thought that was interesting. But there are a lot of themes in this movie too, aside from the mass shooting theme. Do you want to touch on some of those for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's lots of things covered here. I think moral panics is one that comes to mind. Mob mentalities, like we see moral panics every day. Woke DEI today. That's the moral panic right now, among many others. But you know, this movie paints that very clearly. Like everyone in the town is in an uproar about the missing kids, to the point where even the teacher character Justine, she feels unsafe. She's being stalked. She can't go to work. Everyone blames her for the disappearances of their kids, even though it's very clear she had nothing to do with it.
Right.
It's a little too real at points.
Yeah, no, especially with the moral panic being directed at an elementary school teacher, because it feels very real, because a lot of the anti-LGBTQ plus crowd's moral panic has been directed at school teachers and elementary school curriculums, thinking that it's like their kids gay and woke or whatever. And it's like, in reality, you know what, man, if your kid's gay, they were already gay and they're going to continue to be gay. And you can either, learn to deal with it, or you're not going to be in their life for very long. Like that moral panic is hideous, obviously, and has been targeted at that group of like school teachers and educators and stuff like that, and that is now culminating in like a fucking potential Supreme Court case trying to roll back same-sex marriage, which is disgusting. But that just felt very true to this moment. The victim of all this ire being an elementary school teacher of all things, just because she happened to be the teacher of the class where all the kids
Yeah, exactly. Like she's just trying to do her best and live her life, and all of a sudden everyone just starts to attack her. It's not very fun. And I think, I think the movie, and one of the other themes that comes up, and I wanted to make sure I talked about this because this is important, is child abuse and neglect. That definitely comes up here. It's not like super on the nose here, but Alex, the kid in this movie, who's the only one, and that was also a really good reveal that they kept quiet in the trailer, because it sounded like the entire class went missing, but they didn't tell us that only one kid did not, and that was a good kind of little sneak in there, or at least if they put that in the trailer, I didn't see it. So like that was a good thing to keep hidden for a while. So good job, guys.
Yeah.
But Alex, back to child abuse and neglect. Alex literally shows multiple signs of abuse and neglect in this movie. He's becoming isolated. He's incredibly quiet. He doesn't hang out with anybody or his friends. He doesn't talk to anybody. He just goes to school and he goes back home after stopping at the store to get some cans of soup. And he has to do the bidding of his aunt, Gladys, for the bulk of the movie, which we don't even realize until that final story, or that vignette that's focused on him. And the kids who disappear are literally being neglected in a basement, with the exception of a daily can of soup, which is fucked up. And I just want to also call out that I'm just happy that the movie talked about child welfare. People do talk about it, but it's not always in movies. I feel like it's more kind of like in social media or on TV and things like that. like
Yeah.
news segments and stuff. But there's a whole scene here where Justine is on the phone with the principal, Marcus, and he's in the grocery store, and they're discussing protocols for reporting cases of child abuse and neglect.
Right.
And they even refer to each other as mandatory reporters. Mandatory reporters are specific people in our society. It varies from state to state, like the rules and responsibilities of mandatory reporters and who's classified as one. But in general, these people are like anybody who works in a job where you interact with kids on a regular basis. So that's not just school teachers, that's not just gym coaches, that's not just school faculty, that's things like dentists, that's like photographers, that's like clergy. Like there's so many categories of mandatory reporters, and so many people don't know it, that they're a mandatory reporter. So I'm just glad that they included language like that in this movie, because child abuse and neglect is an important issue, and yeah, it's just nice to see that.
Yeah, well, and they touch on too another element of it where like Justine is sort of overstepping what is appropriate for her role in these kids' life. Like it talks about how she drove a kid home once who was stuck there late, and then she keeps trying to talk to Alex outside of the school, or I guess in a way, like neglecting his trauma in favor of trying to like assuage her own guilt.
Yeah.
But also it's like it's got to be a tough line in a role like that, because you want to be supportive and there for your kids as a teacher, but there is like a very important line that like educators, especially educators of kids, probably can't cross because it becomes inappropriate. And I'm sure when you see a kid struggling in those ways, like it is very hard not to be there for them fully, even like the appropriate dynamic. But also with Alex specifically, I thought the film was going in a very different direction than they ended up going with him, because we see early on like a lot of the other classmates are kind of bullying him and messing with him, and they all disappear and he doesn't. And so in keeping with my read that it was about a mass shooting, I thought he was the mass shooter. I thought it was especially because he was sort of like hostile at a certain point. It's like, don't talk to me. I don't want to, like, go away. Leave me alone. It seemed like he was sort of in an antisocial state. And we get the context for why. It's because of, Gladys. And if anybody finds out, she's going to kill his parents or whatever. But I like that the film didn't end up doing that, though. I kind of prefer because if it went in that direction, it wouldn't have been able to balance the more comedic stuff as well in the movie, because I don't know, maybe it could have, but it would have felt pretty dark if they'd gone in that direction.
I agree. I'm glad they went in the direction they did. And yeah, I mean, to your point too, that a school shooter can be a lot of different people. It's not always going to be someone who goes to that school, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's always unfortunate, but yes.
Yes, it's every case of it is terrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's not better if the shooter is a student.
Oh God.
For our international audience members, there are so many of these, man. Like,
yeah, America's got a lot of problems.
Yep.
That's a big one. One of the other themes, moving on to something much lighter, grief. I think grief is obviously, what Zach Cregger was going for here. That's a very prevalent theme, but I think it's also focusing on the impacts of grief and like how people cope with grief, and we see characters coping in different ways. Mainly, I think it's like portrayed through Justine and Archer, Julia Garner and Josh Brolin's characters. I think that those are the main ones that show that grief and the impacts of it. Like Archer, he is literally sleeping in his son's bed He's consistently dreaming about him. He's consistently dropping the ball at work. He's like putting in the orders wrong for his contracting business and fucking up projects. And he's looking actively in his spare time when he honestly probably should be working. He's looking for ways to get like vigilante justice or like figure out the crime, like figure out what happened to his kids on his own because he doesn't think the cops are doing a good job. And so he's like taking it upon himself. He feels so much responsibility. Justine, similarly, she feels so much responsibility for this, but there's nothing that she can really do. The only way that she's really coping is by drinking an ungodly amount of alcohol. Like she goes to the liquor store and gets 2 bottles of vodka. It's like, oh my gosh, you're really, that's rough. That's rough. And that's grief.
Yeah. I like to one. They're both great in this, by the way. The performances, we haven't talked about the performances much this episode, but they are great. But Josh Brolin is so good at playing like a douchebag, definitely Republican dad.
Yeah.
But I what you're saying too about his grief and what he's doing, it's so like his response is so natural because he's angry and confused and helpless, and he's looking for someone to lash out at, but 2, he's looking, and I think, you know what? It's telling that he's a construction guy. He's looking for something to do tactilely, whatever. Fuck it. He's trying to do something with his hands. He wants to be involved and get his hands dirty and solve the problem. He wants to construct a solution. Because he can't sit idly by. Like it seems like he's like a project manager, like he's in charge of this like construction and stuff like that, and he just like he needs to be in charge and he needs to find an answer. But one thing I like about his character too, though, is he's like locked in on blaming Justine, but then when the principal, Benedict Wong's character, gets weaponized against her, he very immediately is like, what the fuck is going on? And like works pretty hard to defend her, and then realizes in that moment it's like, okay, obviously this was not you. Like he's not unreasonable like the entire way. Once he sees evidence that suggests something else is going on, he kind of starts putting the pieces together, and I like that they end up working together with each other. But yeah, and one other theme too that it's sort of in a subplot with God, what's the cop's name? Alden Ehrenreich's character, Paul and James. Like there's a little bit of touching on police brutality and cops covering for their own. Like when Paul thinks, when he gets accidentally stabbed by the needle, he just like clocks James in the head and knocks him out in full view of his dash cam, and he kind of out about that, and the police chief covers up for him. But it's like the story ends up going in a different direction than really lingering on that. The narrative is not about that specifically, but it does touch on it. And by the way, both Alden Ehrenreich and Austin Abrams are great in this storyline. By the way, I love when he stabs him in the face with all the needles.
That's the only weapon he could muster
Gladys.
up.
Yeah. Well, and he thinks he's Gladys, and it's just, oh God, it's just a comedy of errors, and it ends so horribly for both of them, unfortunately, because they're just trying to do. They like both kind of stumble into this plot, and then they're trying to do the right thing. Like, James goes and he finds the kids. He finds them.
Yeah.
And he does. He goes to the police station to be like, hey, well, I mean, he's trying to get the money, but whatever. And he's like, hey, we gotta go find these kids. I know where they are. And then they get cooked, man. They get so screwed.
Yeah, they really do. That's such a great part. And one other thing while we were just talking here that I forgot to write down is parasites, like the parasitic nature of people. Like that's just a theme that keeps popping up in this movie. Like obviously Gladys is the biggest parasite of them all. She's just sucking the life out of everybody else. But I feel like you do see like small little snippets of like parasite behavior in this movie. Like the principal and his husband, when they're at home on a Saturday, they're watching like this program about like this ants. There's like this larvae or something like that, like the small little
Oh,
parasite
yeah.
that turns ants into like little zombies. And it's like a parasitic nature documentary. And then there's like some other elements that I'm definitely blanking on right now, but I feel
Yeah.
like there's like this theme of parasite stuff going on in this movie.
Yeah. I think now that you mentioned the program, if it's the same thing I'm thinking of, I think that parasite that consumes the ant is what they base the like monsters in The Last of Us off of.
Ooh, yeah, I think you're right.
I think that's where that came from. And also like you could make an argument too that I don't know, maybe Justine is even a little bit parasitic towards Paul in their relationship, kind of like
Yeah.
she's in a bad place and kind of drags him a little bit back down when he's got his own stuff to worry about. I don't know how I feel about that, but
Yeah. But I mean, James is kind of like that, a parasite on society in a way. Like he's not
on
really
his family
doing too
and
much.
friends.
Yeah, he's just trying to get money to get more drugs, basically.
Yeah. One miscellaneous thing, but speaking of the principal, Benedict Wong's character and his partner, one, that sequence is like sad and funny when Gladys comes to their house and then she's like, "Oh, I want a bowl to drink my water," and Benedict Wong's like, "Okay, sure," but they sit down to eat their lunch of 7 hot dogs, chips, and carrots, and which is funny in and of itself. But the 7 hot dogs apparently is a Whitest Kids You Know reference to a sketch with Trevor Moore specifically. What I was reading on.
Oh my God! Yes, I know the exact one. Timmy goes to the doctor for a health checkup, and Trevor Moore just asks him a bunch of questions. So, how many hot dogs do you eat in a day? And he just goes beat by beat, like, so breakfast. Hold on. How many hot dogs did you eat for breakfast?
Wait, I think I've seen that. You may have showed that to me in college. Actually, I remember
That
that
one's so stupid.
because he's like 7 is a lot for a day, right? Is that the?
Yeah, it's like 7. Maybe I'm misremembering, but that's the one that pops into my head. Yeah, that feels like a Whitest Kids You Know bit.
Yeah. And speaking of things that are funny, the ending sequence, it goes from like very horrifying, where like Paul and James get killed. Archer is choking out Justine because he's been controlled briefly as well, and what's the kid's name?
Alex.
Alex's parents are going berserk on him because he stepped over the salt line, But then Alex gets control of the situation. He weaponizes all of the little children against Glass. And the scene of them chasing her through the neighborhood is fucking hysterical. It's it's so silly. And she knows immediately what's happened, and she's like, "Oh no!" and just
It's so funny. Oh my God. I did not expect that kind of ending at all. And it's so satisfying when the kids finally catch her and they just like
they rip her
peel
fucking head
her
off.
open. They're like a bunch of zombies, like
Yeah.
just tearing her apart.
Yeah, and the Weekly Planet podcast mentioned this on their episode this week, but it's funny how Gladys seems kind of like a one-trick pony with this witchcraft stuff. Like she learned how to do this one spell with the little twig in the hair, and she uses it all the time, but she doesn't really seem to know how to do anything else, and she doesn't have a fail-safe in the circumstance it gets turned on her ever. So like, I guess she's never had a problem with it before. And the first time she does, she gets absolutely roasted. And just as a side question too, like, if the people she weaponizes like don't die, what does she do with them afterward? Does she just leave them like standing around somewhere? Because all the kids just kind of deactivated when they kill her at the end.
Yeah, I have no idea. That's a really good question. Maybe they just go ambient for the rest of their life, and they're just in that player mode at the menu startup screen.
Yeah, and it is still like a kind of a bittersweet ending because obviously Gladys is defeated, Alex is free, but most of the kids like never talk again. Some of them start to, and Alex's parents are like completely gone. Archer was only affected for a couple minutes, so he recovers pretty fully. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, there's loss in the movie still, so it doesn't like undercut the grief elements that it's built up to because like there is, substantial loss to this community at the end of the movie.
Absolutely, there is. But yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely recommend this movie in a heartbeat. And I've read through some reviews online before we hopped on today, and I honestly cannot understand why some people do not like this movie or were disappointed by it. Like, perhaps they were expecting something more classic horror, something more gory, something more suspenseful. I don't know, but I appreciated the combination of genres here. This story just is so unique, and I'm definitely gonna watch it again.
Yeah, I really liked it as well, and I'd recommend it to most of our audience. But with that, I think let's transition into some other stuff for the end of the show. Niles, what have you been up to recently in your media consumption?
Yeah, besides watching Weapons, we started this series on Netflix called, or is it Netflix? I can't remember where it is. HBO, whatever. Somewhere. It's called OJ Made in America. And it's a docu-series about O.J. Simpson. But it contextualizes it in like the history around like his upbringing. Like it goes back all the way to the start, like of his football career, even before that, his upbringing, like where he came from. And it really kind of contextualizes like the cultural landscape of the time, and like where he came from as well. And like we're not that far into it yet, but like the first episode, they spend so much time focused on like at the time that OJ was becoming notable in football and kind of rising up. He won the Heisman Trophy, whatever. There were a lot of other prominent black athletes who were standing up at the time and being like, no, we're not going to compete at the Olympics until we get until equality. We need adequate compensation for what we're doing. Like we need to be viewed as equals with our white counterparts. And like there were like a lot of prominent black athletes like Muhammad Ali and like other people like that who were actually like getting into politics at the time. And OJ was just like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want people to think of me as black. I just want people to think of me as OJ. And it just like really. Oh,
that's right. That's his famous line. I'm not black. I'm OJ. Right. That's
yeah.
directly, yeah.
That is his line. Yeah. He's like,
fuck him.
I know. Fuck OJ. And like they also contextualize it too, because it's like, well, he was kind of seduced by white culture in a way, and like once he made the transition to go to this school, I can't remember exactly, somewhere in North Carolina, but once he made that transition to go to that school, he kind of like got adopted into white culture, and it just kind of snowballed from there. But then like you go like 10 blocks outside of that campus at the time, and it's like you see like the effects of institutional racism, and it's just it's very interesting so far. And yeah, fuck OJ, but I'm interested in like just the history there, and more to come with that. It's fascinating so far. And the only other thing that's kind of new with me is to fill the Drag Race void in our lives right now, because there's no new content coming out that we want to watch. We restarted going back to some of the older seasons, so we restarted season 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Fantastic season. It's one of my favorites. It's got Jinx Monsoon, Alaska Thunderfuck, Roxy Andrews. That's Alaska's real last name. Lots of really really strong queens. Alyssa Edward. It's just fun to kind of like have in the background. It's like I remember that dress. Wow, the fashion sure has evolved from 2013, 2015, whenever it was.
Cool.
But yeah, what about you, Dylan? What have you been up to?
I'm continuing to read Project Hail Mary. I'm getting pretty close to the end now. I think I have less than 100 pages left. And speaking of OJ, I saw the gun movie. This is the sort of reboot sequel starring Liam Neeson. For those who don't know, O.J. Simpson was in the original Naked Gun movies alongside Leslie Nielsen. I liked the new Naked Gun a lot. I thought it was really funny in the similar ways that the old ones were, and Liam Neeson is a great new Frank Drebin. Pamela Anderson is in it as well, and she's great.
Cool.
And Danny Houston plays the villain. He's like an Elon Musk type, and he was really well.
Cool. I want to watch that.
It was great. It really felt like just another Naked Gun movie. Obviously, Leslie Nielsen passed away a long time ago, so he couldn't be in the revival. But I'd recommend the Naked Gun. I thought it was a really good time. And changing medias, I finished Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Finally, I think. My main criticism of the game overall sort of stayed consistent, but it's like the stakes and the tone of the story are pretty serious and world-ending, but sometimes like the characters, they're just a little too lighthearted and jokey, and I get they want the game to be, fun and stuff, but I don't know, sometimes they strayed a little bit too far in that direction. But overall, I really liked the game, and it really stuck the landing. The last 4 to 5 hours, like after you get through the point of no return, the climax of the story is really satisfying. Your choices kind of come fruition, and you can kind of like, similar to anyone who played Mass Effect 2, the suicide mission at the end of that game. It's like your success level at the final mission kind of depends on knowing your party members and their capabilities well enough to like assign them to the right task. And this game kind of does a similar thing, and that was nice. And I was good. I knew all my party members super well, and we. But
nice.
In Mass Effect 2, did you ever play Mass Effect back in the day?
I did not. No, I did not.
Yeah, at the end of Mass Effect 2 on the suicide mission, like you can end the game with everybody surviving, or like literally everyone, including Commander Shepard, can die on that mission. I think if you fuck it up.
Oh my gosh! Okay, those are some stakes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then since I finished the Veilguard, I returned to Indiana Jones and the Golden Circle, and I'm continuing to play that a little bit. I haven't gotten all that much further, but it's a cool game. Lots of big open areas for you to explore, puzzles and like tombs to solve, and you get to punch and shoot a lot of Nazis. Classic Indiana things.
What more could you want?
Nothing. But I think that is going to do it for us on the show this week. And we'll be back in 2 weeks for another episode. I don't know what's going to be out in time to review. That Honey Don't movie is coming out. The Margaret Qualley, Aubrey Plaza, Chris Evans one looks really good.
Yeah,
it might not be out soon enough. We'll figure something out, but we'll be back. I forgot the outro to the show last week, guys. It was off. And then when I was editing the episode, I'm like, wait a minute. We didn't wrap up.
I forgot something.
So
that happens.
in the spirit of doing the show right, Niles, where can people find you online until our next episode?
You can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. Dylan, where can people follow you online?
You can follow me on Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDayMovies, on YouTube at DDayMovies, and you can find both of us here at Play Pause Rewind, both on your podcast platform of choice and on YouTube. You can also find us on our second channel, Play Pause Rewind Videos, where we have non-spoiler segments, non-podcast videos, and other clips and stuff. Yeah, all of that is linked down in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching or listening. We really appreciate it. And we will see y'all next time. Goodbye.
Bye.